Okay, so this is the Pop It Like It's Hot commentary. Back for another one of my gameplay videos. This is Nick with Dave and Chris here.
Charmander.
What's going on?
So, yeah, this is, I was telling them just before we started, this is Heisen's 01's list from one of the recent challenges. I think he had taken it down with this. It's a Jeskai, kind of more of an, I guess, an aggro combo or aggro. I don't know. It's hard to like.
So is this the Jeskai list that runs Glinthawks, or are you?
No, I think this one was on more of the like card advantage spells. So I think,
Okay.
If I remember right, he had just Skyfishers, Muldrifter, Seekers, and Archaeomancers.
Okay, so it's more of the control variant, running Lightning Bolts, Mystic Remoras.
Exactly. So yeah, he's got a couple Mystic Remoras main, mostly for like the Jeskai matchups.
Yeah, we talked on the podcast a little bit about how Jeskai is sort of branching out into the mid-rangey aggro Lindoso type lists, and then these more control lists that don't run the Glinthawks and run, the Lightning Bolts and have the alternate win cons outside of just creature combat.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, this was I think the first time I played this, and I'd been playing like some of the more aggressive Jeskai lists. So this one was just a different take on the deck for me, and a little more removal heavy, which I was kind of playing a ton of aggro decks that day. So I just decided I wanted something that might have a little more game against some of the aggressive stuff that was going around.
Yeah, and maybe it's just a playstyle preference, but I really have liked the Jeskai lists that are running the Lightning Bolts. I know, the mid-range list have been running a one of Fire Ice, but I like the Lightning Bolt as that alternate win con. You can loop it with an Archaeomancer and really get somebody down pretty quick once you get it set up. So I guess we can jump right into game one. Your opener here, 2 Seeker of the way.
Yeah, it looked okay for me, depending on where they were at. Didn't have any cantrips, which is a little concerning, but I had access to white mana, so that I could get the Seekers down and then get this Remora online, hopefully, and see where they're at and try to draw some extra cards off that.
Yeah, you've got some creatures, you've got some removal, you've got 2 colors. I mean, it's a reasonable hand. It doesn't let you get some of your more powerful openers, like Island Astrolabe, but I think it's a reasonable keep. Your 6 isn't necessarily going to be better.
Yeah, and I actually really liked that draw. It's a little slow, but at least it gives me access to the 3rd color, so now my removal spells and my Seekers are definitely both online.
Yeah.
I think play draw affects whether you keep that or not, too.
So Mystic Remora is an interesting include in the main deck. Are you looking to play that early?
Not really, especially against something aggressive like this.
Right, I guess the turn 2 Wild Mongrel does change things a little bit.
Yeah. I think I didn't even want that in my hand anymore by the time I saw that card. But
yeah.
For me personally, I like getting it down once I have a bit of mana online, so that I can afford to pay the upkeep cost and then still maybe play a spell or two in between.
Yeah. So you opted to go with the white mana first here to get the Seeker of the way down, rather than the red to immediately bolt the Wild Mongrel. Mm-hmm. What was your thinking there?
So I figured, even though I might get some card advantage out of bolting the Mongrel because he'd have to pitch 2 cards, it wasn't super likely to take it out. And since I had double Seeker, and I was just trying to buy some time, I thought I kind of liked the idea that if he tries to remove it, because it's just as big a threat to him, then it would slow his development of his board. So it kind of pseudo buys me a turn in some sense.
Yeah, I guess the way that I approach matchups against decks like this is I try to run them out of cards. So if I Lightning Bolt and they want to discard 2 cards to Wild Mongrel to keep it alive, that's fine because I'm going to outcard them later. I'm fine, One for one removal in Jeskai is great against decks like, a red-green brew that's not going to be able to draw cards.
Yeah, and I guess I was kind of trying to be conservative with my removal because I wanted to make sure it actually removed whatever I was targeting. So even though I would probably get a 2-for-1 because he seemed pretty likely to hang on to his Mongrel, I just ended up deciding I wanted to hang on to it and wait for a moment where he had fewer cards in hand so it would be likely to actually remove it.
I think it's just big game, getting the Seeker to swing back in the racing scenario. And you drawing the 3rd one, you're like, all right, run it back.
Basically.
Let's see how many times you can remove my guy.
And the Lightning Axe, maybe I should have expected, but it kind of came out of left field for me. So I figured that he'd have to spend a whole turn removing it. or at least like lock down some of his mana. But unfortunately, it kind of enabled him to play some of his other spells because he's on Madness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and one of the things about playing a brew like red-green, with it appears to be red-green madness, is you have a huge advantage game one because a lot of times your opponent is not going to know what you're doing.
yeah.
So a lightning axe, for instance, is going to come right out of left field. It'll get you.
But so that turn I just had was the one I was trying to set up for with the Scred and Lightning Bolt, which is why I didn't use it earlier, where I established 4 snow permanents on board, and he only had 2 cards in hand. So I knew either way I was going to get rid of the Mongrel, and then hopefully use that to kind of like stabilize the board and climb my way back into the game.
Yeah, now you're kind of showing off a little bit of the engine of the Jeskai deck, bouncing the Astrolabe with the Core Skyfisher, and
Yeah, I kind of tried to consider whether I wanted to just bounce one of the lands, so I have Counterspell up for his turn, and just decided I'd try to like dig for a land instead, and unfortunately missed.
You could have hit Remora too, if like they tried to interact. Like
well,
if you draw a land there.
He was a little low on cards, so wasn't sure whether he'd have too many more non-creature spells. So and with nothing on board to block, that felt kind of risky as well. But it was an option, so it was kind of in the back of my mind whether I should try to get it out while he still had some cards in hand, or whether I should, just kind of abandon that plan entirely.
Ooh, okay.
So again, he hits me with the sort of double.
Maybe the best case scenario for the last 2.
yeah, I feel like
guess.
I'm in Shadows over Innistrad Limited right now. This
Yeah.
is unreal.
I think. Yeah, this one looks tough at this point.
Yeah, but I mean,
Second land.
I hit my second land. I had run him out of cards, so at this point, I just really need to avoid any kind of removal spell, and I figured the
Right.
Seeker would be enough to like kind of dig my way back in. And
He has no reason not to shove here, and he's got 2 menace guys, so he's 2 turns away from getting you dirty.
yeah,
He'll probably shove with the red guys. Oh, everything. Okay.
yeah, because I can't block
So-
those anyway, and I can't profitably block the Mongol. So
Right. Yeah, and this is your 3rd one, so it's not like you're throwing away this one.
yeah, so I just had to. In my mind, I just had to fade a burn spell of some kind, which I did, and. Yeah,
Molded
here,
Ephemerate.
here I kind of had to decide whether I just want to go like Remora to pump the Seeker and gain some life, or Ephemerate and Uldrafter, which was going to dig me some more cards, and I happened to hit.
Yeah, so that was like a perfect
pretty
line of
ideal. Yeah,
draws, I think.
land into a removal 1-mana removal spell. So get a body on board, and then remove one of his bigger threats, which in addition, gaining me some life.
Yeah, but
And
he's
this is the
still
beauty of the Seeker,
okay.
the
Yeah,
way.
so you get the lifelink, so you're not dead to bolt when he has 3 cracks at it next turn.
Yeah.
Or yeah,
And then here, it was a little bit of a consideration for a half second whether I would chump, but I just decided the cards weren't particularly worth it. I'd rather hang on to the life. So I just threw the Moldrifter in front of the Wild Mongrel. And
so would you fail to ephemerate your guy there on purpose so you can lifelink back at him, or?
well, so I don't even get to cast it, so I don't get the trigger. It was kind of a
Right.
consideration of whether I wanted to have it in my graveyard so that I could hit it with a future Archaeomancer.
Okay, gotcha.
And I just decided I was kind of in a risky spot, and I wanted to be able to attack and gain the life. And I think I kind of liked what those 3 cards do.
Yeah, you got to be happy to see those 3 on the top of your deck. That's exactly what you're looking for in a matchup where your opponent's out of cards and is just hoping to race you.
Yeah, so I see, Secret number 4, followed by Pulse, buying me a ton more time in life. I think I missed some damage there with the Remora, because I don't remember if I decided to cast it here or not, but probably could have just cast it for 1 more life.
Yeah, if you're going to play out the Ash Barrens, I think you probably want to play the Remora.
So,
It happens.
So this one feels pretty locked up with you waiting on your counter spells this long, and now
yeah, short of him
see
hitting
what you get here.
something like a Arrogant Worm or Reckless Worm.
Yeah,
it
Pulse
felt-
Marasa is disgusting here.
So here now I'm just using it as
It's over.
like a double pump spell essentially.
And this is kind of how a lot of games with Jeskai go. You just sort of tread water until you've built up a decent amount of lands, you've just stayed alive, and now you've reached that critical mass where he's never going to resolve another spell, and you're going to be gaining life every turn.
Yeah,
And him interacting on your turn just makes those Seekers bigger.
yeah, he picked up a bolt, didn't really matter at that point in the game, and just ends up buying me 2 extra life.
Yeah, I think initially these Jeskai decks were on Weather the Storm, but then once you realize Pulse of Marasa 6 every time, get a guy back, it just does a lot more. Like it's not only life, but it also can equate to damage.
Yeah, I
or
think
card draws
Methonical's the
of
one
other
that
things.
I first saw innovate the Pulse of Marasa.
Might have been, yeah.
Yo, I was on that shit.
Well, I was trying to decide there whether I wanted to pulse for an extra 2 damage and 2 life, but it wasn't going to be lethal, and I figured I'd just rather have
Yeah,
access to counter
it doesn't affect your clock.
So,
Yeah, so this one looks pretty over. I mean, initially on the turn 2 with the Mongrel in the mountain forest, I was like, oh, you could be on Stompy with the bolts. Like, people were kind of doing that. I don't know if they were playing mountain. I think they were maybe one mountain or something.
I don't remember seeing mountain, and they weren't snow
Okay.
covered, which I think because they were playing a couple Astros, like 3 Astros.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, well, maybe he's going to Burning Tree and then get your guy, and then you're really behind with kind of the draw you had, but it turned out to be kind of a more fringe deck. You just drew a lot of Seekers on that one.
Yeah, it's got to feel good getting the game 1 win there against the surprise deck, because now you know what he's doing, and it's going to make your decision making a little bit easier. What are you thinking about boarding out here? I think there's some obvious candidates to board in.
Yeah, so definitely didn't want the Remoras. I don't like counterspell against aggro decks.
Right.
It's a bit slow, especially on the draw. It's a bit slow to try and react on the
They
stack
were
with
dead
their-
on that game 1
Yeah.
for a long time.
And Muldrifter comes down a bit late, which kind of weakens the effectiveness of Ephemerate, because actually, so this one's not even on Augur Bolus or anything like that for
Yeah.
additional card advantage.
So this list is actually kind of on the fence between the aggro versions and the full control versions.
Yeah, well, this is like one of the earlier, I guess, so to speak, developments of this deck. So it was
Okay. This hand looks like an automatic
Yeah, I
mulligan.
think
Yeah,
you're
you've already
right
got your
in the
mouse
middle.
hovered over the
Yeah.
mulligan button. This is you go to 6 here.
I was ready for it.
That's kind of the downside of
Absolutely.
running the Evolving Wilds and Ash Barrens package. Is that if that's your only land, you can't keep it, and you only run 19 lands. So
I think if
That
it was
looks
an
great.
Evolving Wilds, I probably would have kept, because I get
Brainstorm lock.
it is a problem, but I get a second draw at a land followed by running the Astro, and I had a removal spell and my sweeper, which kind of made me want to lean towards hanging on to that first one if it was Evolving Wilds. But with
Right.
it being Ash Barrens, there's just nothing I could do.
Right.
I had to ship that back.
This 6 looks great to dig
Much
you
better
out and
6.
ahead of and a Hydroblast for a quick interaction to.
And he had mulled
what's
to
red?
5
That's
as
great.
well, so on the play. So
Okay.
that helped simplify a lot of my decisions.
yeah, just kind of on a larger scale, Hydroblast is one of those cards that in the past set or two has just gone way, way up in value in my estimation.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's running Screds now. Like, it's not dead unless you're playing Stompy or something. It's hardly ever dead in a matchup.
Yeah, and Pyroblasts in a ton of sideboards. I think even either Bilster or Kung Fu Trees, a couple of like prominent online grinders were running 6 or 7 Pyros out.
Yeah. The idea being that a lot of the value creatures are what you need to be countering in this format, and a lot of them are blue.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, Muldrifter in this match, Archaeomancer, you got Mnemonic Wall and Tron.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you're astrolabing, if you can just stop the creature that's drawing and a substance in itself, you're like kind of negating the advantage they're building towards.
And if you're playing in the challenge, if you make the top 8, you're inevitably going to play Mono Blue Delver against Metzel. So having 7 1-mana counterspells to bring in is always a good thing.
He is showing up a lot. I was trying to debate there whether I wanted to run out the Skyfisher to get some value out of Astrolabe the following turn, and just decided I'd wait and hold up the Hydro so that it would be protected from a bolt, which he did happen to have, although he decided to point it at my face instead of saving it for a future creature.
To me, his actions look very kind of desperate.
Yeah, and you've got something to do with your mana, too.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I wanted to keep this other wall off the table, even though he was going to need one more land to pump them both, mostly just so that I would have more limited number of threats to go up against.
Absolutely. You draw Scred here, game over.
That's
Although
kind
I
of
feel
your
like
ideal
it's been
turn
game over
3.
for a while.
So you opted to keep the Hydroblast up instead of... Are you just trying to keep the Skyfisher alive?
Mostly, yeah. Which, I guess, even though I decided I didn't want to block, it means that he's got to leave up 2 mana to be able to pump the root wall. So I was just trying to pressure his resources as much as I could, and
Okay.
just try to dig my own way to like a Scred or a Bolt or something.
And your kind of escape hatch for that wasted mana is Ash Baron's end of turn.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that is important to bring up, especially for people who are trying to learn how to grind this format. It's good in every format, but especially in Pauper, where it's just, every deck is just pure value. Using all of your mana on every turn is huge in this format.
Yeah.
I think, yes. Go ahead.
No, just being efficient. I didn't really have more to say about that, but it's important to keep that in mind when you're deciding, what to do with your mana, what's the most efficient way, how can you use it all every turn.
Yeah. And again, I left up the Hydro so that I would have expected him to play that more in combat so he could try to 2-for-1 me on a block. But since he had pretty aggressively tried to bolt my Skyfish at the end of turn, I just decided it was low chances that he had a third bolt. So I went for the double block, even though there's a risk of the blowout.
Yeah, this one seems just over.
But
His mulligan it's hurt him. I think it shows like the power of Skyfisher. Like compared to a Seeker blank, you force them to act, and you're just ready with you could see how you've drawn, and it hasn't been, you've got a lot of lands. You just kind of have some answer, but not like everything.
Yeah.
But it's just the 2/3 forces them to act first.
he actually kind of dug his way out of it, hitting this Hooting Mandrills, because that put a ton of pressure on me to try and find some kind of Scred or removal for it.
Yeah, you don't have infinite life here. You're at 10 life, so that Hooting Mandrills presents a very real clock.
Yeah, I think I don't know what happens here, but, attacking kind of, but like Seeker is going to crack back. What one card could he have right now? Any 2-card combination that says you're dead? I don't know I guess Bolt.
Well, not necessarily dead, but it puts a lot of pressure on the 3 cards in Nick's hand to get him to something relevant.
Yeah,
And,
Scred.
I
And
think
there's
I
your
made
Scred.
a small misplay there because I probably should have preordained before the Seeker, so in case I hit the Scred, but I just decided I wanted to get it online, and actually kind of as an afterthought decided I was going to go for the preordain that turn instead of wasting the 1 mana, because I had thought about kind of bluffing another 1 mana interaction spell, and just decided I'd rather try to dig for what I need.
Yeah, even, recognizing your misplay probably at the time, you said, I'm still going to be efficient with my mana, and I'm still going to use this preordain, because it's just infinitely better than leaving that 1 mana open and unused.
Yeah. So
Was there any hesitation there of not attacking for any haste creature possibly, or?
I couldn't think of any that were
Right.
that would be in a Madness deck, so I just
Right.
decided I would have the Archaeomancer follow-up, so if I had to throw it in front of something,
Right.
I could
Okay.
have, but was feeling pretty confident that he was probably out of gas, so just decided to go for counterspell to try and use the board presence that I had, and then just keep any kind of expensive threats off the table.
And getting back to counterspell, if you draw an Ephemerate at any point, the game is just over.
Yeah.
He never resolves another spell with the Archaeomancer Ephemerate loop.
Yeah, and he actually happened to hit pretty well with this Faithless Looting. So drawing that for his turn, and then drawing into a 4/1 threat was pretty solid.
Blood Mad Vamp, he really did just go deep on this Shadows over Innistrad, Eldritch Moon limited cards.
Madness.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for him, I top decked the Hydro to take it out. Was actually kind of even deciding whether I wanted to just throw this Archaeomancer in front of it and just keep going 1-for-1, but
Which you're very capable of doing with.
yeah, especially having Muldrifter in hand. But I just decided, I have another counter. I think I end up.
Yeah, I think you
Hydroing
just
on his
wait.
main phase.
Like you're in such a position of strength that draw a pulse at any time. You draw your second Seeker and an interactive, like it's another Scred or. Any consideration?
I did consider whether I
Counter?
should counter this since it could dig him into some more root walls or something.
Yeah.
But I just figured with him on only one land, there's not a whole lot he could play.
Right.
Really, he only had the 2 root walls left, so I didn't think it was
Right.
a big threat. And I only had 1 card in hand at the time too. So
And with Faithless Looting not being actual card advantage, you're fine with whatever he draws, really, because you can 1-for-1 him for the rest of the game and be happy about it.
yeah, and then once he empties his hand there and plays the Pyro, I just decide I'll hydro the Vampire and hang on to my Archmancer in case I hit Ephemerate or something.
Save it for the real threat. And even if he madnesses something, you just wait for him to show you that.
Yeah.
Instead of.
You keep up the blue mana because Island's the strongest mana.
Just because it's prettier, I guess.
Send a
I don't
message.
know. With double Astro, it's not.
Keep
really
it up to
important
let him know he blew it.
which one.
So
And
he
just-
faces you right here?
He just
yeah.
decides to send a message.
Well, yeah. He doesn't know you have counterspell, right? So
I don't
Yes,
think
he does.
No,
You
I
got
think
it with the Archaeomancer.
I played that counterspell the previous turn when he
Oh, you
tried to
drew-
pyro the Archaeomancer.
You drew another one?
But I drew
okay.
another one off of the Muldrifter here.
Okay.
But just decided, I have lethal on board plus the bolt in my hand, so I can just afford to.
he
let
did
the-
draw it, though.
He did go runner burn spell, so he had a shot there, but
Definitely closer than I'd like on paper. If I saw these 2 decks, I'd say, oh, look, there's so much life link keywords on this or gain life, and it's not going to be close. But he had a
But
shot
it just
there.
comes down to Jeskai is a deck that just wins on card advantage, and that's exactly what we saw there.
yeah. So I ended up with a ton of cards in hand, a bunch of removal spells, and superior board presence. So
Yeah, I like Pulse. I mean, people are running that as a one of. It's just, how has that been in your experience with the Jeskai list?
super powerful. It was really strong to be able to pick up a bunch of life, possibly by a turn, and plus get back probably some kind of 2-for-1 or just a game-ending threat like a Secret of the Way. So
Awesome. Well, this has been another matchup commentary from Pop It Like It's Hot. Hopefully you guys join us next time. We'll see you then.